So, hi, good morning. My name is Franz. I am a journalism student at University of Canberra. First of all, I have to say thank you very much for you letting me interview you about the Anti-Discrimination New South Wales and also the topic racism is never okay. Is it okay if we can record our audio, our interview?
Yes, that's fine,
Thank you
Vance, and
very
thank you
much.
for.
So, first of all, can you please introduce yourself? What is your name and what is your position in Anti-Discrimination New South Wales?
Okay, well, France, look, firstly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Nick Whitehead, and Investigation Officer with Nation User, which that role involves the investigation and creation of.
Okay, so can you please explain more about your organization? What is that about, and what is the target or key motivation of your organization?
uh, a number of ways in which people can reach us. Obviously, they can write written inquiries using our online address. So they can make an inquiry to Complaints ADB, for example. They can ring us and make an inquiry that way. If there is an issue with people's ability to do that in English, then they can utilise a telephone interpreter service to make an inquiry. They can actually walk in. Not in terms of COVID times at the moment, of course, we can't have walk-in inquiries, but in normal circumstances, people could walk into our offices unannounced and without, an appointment if they wanted to have some, advice at the counter. So that's always been something that we've offered the public as well. So sometimes people don't want to make a complaint, they simply want to understand what their rights are.
Yeah.
And these days we've got a lot of information online, as I said before. So, obviously we've got a website and people can go there and look for the information. There is some very brief information, for example, on some of our fact sheets that's written in multilingually, but it really is only there to alert people to the sorts of things that we do in a very general way. And then, of course, it's probably best in those circumstances that if they need an interpreter and they wanted to speak with us, we would organise that for them. Or if it's done over the telephone, we would use in telephone interpreter service. But we encourage people to talk to us if they're not sure about their circumstance, so they can give us a call and explain their situation. And it can be a bit tricky for people because, of course, we operate in New South Wales and the Act applies to people who experience discrimination in New South Wales. It doesn't govern conduct outside of New South Wales. And of course, that means for your students, for example, that if they experience discrimination in New South Wales, which is quite possible if you going to Canberra University, because you may well work in New South Wales, for example, or you may, have social experiences outside of Canberra, and you would be caught by our provisions if you experience discrimination. But at the same time, if you're a student, if you're within Canberra and experience discrimination, then of course as the Human Rights Commission and a sister agency, if you want to think of it that way, in Canberra that also deals with these matters. So we've got at a federal level, we've got the Australian Human Rights Commission, we've got the Canberra Anti-Discrimination Commission, and we've got the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination, who all deal or can deal with very similar issues around discrimination. And sometimes it's confusing for people because they're not sure where they should go.
Um, According to the general discrimination is kind of really wide, whether it be race, sexual or disability. So in your opinion, what do you think about racism in nowadays?
What do I think personally about racism? Well, of course, I'm against racism. I think the reality is, unfortunately, that racism does exist to some degree in the community. But I guess what I would say is, from a personal perspective, and I'm not somebody who was born in Australia. In fact, I came to Australia as a young child, and when I went to school, I couldn't speak a word of English. So, I started school speaking Spanish as my first language, and couldn't understand a thing that the teachers were saying on my first day at school. But Australia was a very different place in the 60s when I grew up, and I think that it's moved on significantly. It's a much more tolerant place than it has been years gone by. Unfortunately, people. There has been some more, I guess, from what we've heard anecdotally, um, situations where people have, you've seen it in the media, have complained that there's been expressed racism in a rather nasty way in certain situations. And of course, the Asian community have been part of the target for that, and other communities as well. I'd like to say I think we've moved on from the early days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good. So what about most of the complainant? What the topic that people always complain, and what is their average age in general?
Well, I mean, there's lots and lots of different complaints that we receive. I don't have the stats in front of me. I apologise, France, but sex discrimination is one of the grounds that often features in discrimination complaints, as does sexual harassment and race discrimination and disability discrimination. So I would say to you, they're most of the cases. So in terms of sex discrimination, we often see complaints around issues to do with benefits of employment, people not being able to receive the same benefits based on their gender. For example, it might be an issue about a woman alleging that there's some benefit of employment that hasn't been applied to her.
Just want to ask, if I feel like unsafe in my uni and I feel like I got the discrimination about the anti-discrimination during the COVID, what should I do?
In your uni specifically, France, or like in Canberra, or any university?
Anywhere university.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think the first port of call is always, well, it doesn't have to be, but I would encourage the first port of call to be to look to see what policies the university might have about discrimination, because my expectation is that all universities will have something about students' abilities to make complaints or to pursue issues where they feel they've been treated unfairly, that there must be something within the university structure that allows for that.
So lastly, can you give us a detail? How can we contact you? Do you have like any channel that people can contact you?
Well, there's, in terms of inquiries, the best thing to do is to go to our website. Of course, we've got, as I said, we've got social media. So we've got, we're on LinkedIn. I think we're on Twitter and Facebook as well. So the information is provided in that way. And generally, we've got contact numbers as a result of that in those areas. And you can send inquiries to us via email, and you can also telephone us. I'll just need to get our contact details up. So there's a free call number. And look, if you go to our webpage, if anybody does a Google search for Anti-Discrimination New South Wales, all this information will be there. So it's Anti-Discrimination New South Wales. And then we've got our telephone number, which is 02 9268 5544. We've got a free call number, 1800 670 812. And we've got our email address, which is adbcontact@justice.nsw.gov.au. So adbcontact@justice.nsw.gov.au. And of course, you can engage on Facebook. You can't lodge complaints through Facebook, but you can engage, you can make comments, and you can express views via Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn.
Okay, so thank you very much, Nick, for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. I think
thank
our
you.
interview will be useful for someone who's facing a discrimination, no matter what it be. Yeah, thank you very much for
Okay, well,
today.
thank you, friends. It was a pleasure talking to you this morning. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.